This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
From north, south, east, and west, North America, Japan, and back again, this is your home for modern-day wrestling. With the occasional trip back in time, it's Place to Be Nation's main event. Now let's head into Studio B with your host, Scott Criscolo, and the Godfather, Nate Milton.
Place to Be Nation! Welcome back to your home for everything modern-day wrestling here, there, and everywhere. Place to Be Nation's main event. I'm your co-host, Scott Criscolo. We actually have a really fun show tonight because we're kind of going off the rails a little bit. First off, for the first time since he has joined main event, my beloved co-host, my brother in arms, the Godfather, Nate Milton, family commitment this evening. So he will not be joining us this evening, but I hope he's having a wonderful time with the fam. So he'll be back in with our next episode in a couple weeks. The conscience of Place to Be Nation, Steve Willie, could join us at some point in this segment, but he will definitely be with us in the B block because, as you know, this week we will be doing our next installment of the classic TNA pay-per-view recap. And we're going to go back to the 7th weekly TNA episode from July 31st, 2002, which is kind of a combo thing. We have two great X Division matches, and then there's some other less desirable stuff in the middle. So we'll get to that in the B block. However, I kind of want to change things up tonight. We're a week, and if you're listening to this immediately, we're still just less than a week and a half away from SummerSlam next Sunday in Brooklyn, and of course Saturday night NXT TakeOver, which is looking out to be once again a pretty solid card. But we still got a week to go, and I don't know if we want to beat that into the ground yet. I'm sure you'll hear a bunch of different stuff next week. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll recap NXT TakeOver and SummerSlam. So tonight I figured we'd do something a little different. We actually talked about this a year ago when it happened in 2017, and I wanted to talk about it again tonight. It just happened this past weekend. And I want to bring on the man, the myth, the legend, who was there in the exceptional town of Soddy Daisy, Tennessee. You're probably wondering where the hell that is. But we're going to tell you where it is. And of course, you know that exceptional cackle. Joining us this evening is a man who was in Soddy Daisy, Tennessee. You've heard him many times here on the Place to Be on the main event. He has helped us with some of our New Japan matches. He's going to help us in the future with some of our New Japan Classic match picks. Of course, you have heard him on the Place to Be podcast with myself and the PIC as he's joined us for some of our less desirable, it seems like all the time, MSG house shows. But thanks, Kelly. You leave him with the crap. And as you know, he is a legend in New Orleans now. The sheriff himself, the great Pete Schirmacher. Pete, welcome back.
Man, thanks for having me, man.
Of course, we're talking about the 2018, and you were on last year here on Main Event when we talked about this, the old Scenic City Invitational, which you were at last year. It bounces around, right? It's not in the same place. It's in Tennessee all the time, right? But it's not in the same place.
Yeah, they talk to different high schools and whoever really wants to do the fundraiser. Because last year it wasn't in Soddy Daisy; it was in somewhere else. But Soddy Daisy was a great gym, and I'm it's not like I'm a big connoisseur of indie wrestling snack bars, but they did a good job. Had plenty of sodas. They brought in Chick-fil-A, which I think is an upgrade from pizza because Chick-fil-A just holds better.
It's not exactly Nick. It's not Nick Duke's barbecue, but it's close enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Give us a little bit, for those that are new, which includes myself, Pete, I admit it. Give us a little background on how this started, like what this is. Like, we kind of know one of Place to Be Nation's good friends kind of helped start it, but give us a little background on what the Scenic City Invitational actually is and how it got started.
Okay, well, pretty much it started with, this is like, I think the 4th year now. It was just pretty much a tournament that started in grassroots in Tennessee, was more local the first year, and it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger each year. It's had some of the, now we're at year 4 now has some of the biggest stars in indie wrestling and guys who are going to go on. Last year, Matt Riddle won it. He's obviously, everyone knows him because he's heading into WWE and he's supposed to be making his NXT debut anytime now.
Mm-hmm.
This year we had PCO there, Too Cold Scorpio, for like the legends. They always mix in their great local talent, and they have just an array of young up-and-comers combined with good workers. It's just and I felt like this year was like the deepest tournament I felt they've had from top to bottom. I mean, we've had, in the past, you've had people like, Cassius Ohno was in it. So, it has like a legacy and a history. There have been guys who've been, like Jimmy Rave, who's been in TNA. Last year, there was a big emotion because it was Tank's retirement. This year, Kyle Matthews retired, and it was a shame for him because originally this was just going to be his retirement run, but he ended up having an injury 4 months before. I'd say about 4 months prior to the tournament, where he actually wasn't even able to work it this year, along with a young up-and-comer guy named Gunnar Miller, who won it 2 years ago, lost to Matt Riddle last year. So they actually lost a lot of their of the main stories that were going to go going forward into it this year. And so they had to do some, I don't want to say booking on the fly because they had plenty of time to put it together, but they did an excellent job in the booking and the building it forward. But it's become, it's become a destination event. Honestly, of all the places people travel, where you get people from all over, Scenic City would be up there with maybe Progress, Strong Style.
Right.
I don't count Romania weekend because you're going to get that's obviously the ultimate destination event.
Right. Right.
But you have like your SCIs, you have your maybe your Progress, maybe your WX Strong Style tournaments, maybe your New Japan shows that they put on in the U.S. and of course All In, but. This is like the little tournament that could, and this is Dylan Hales and Scott Hensley are now the two guys in charge of it, and it's just grown and grown. Attendance looked a little down this year.
You think so?
Yeah, it was a little down. Nothing significant, but I would say maybe they dropped attendance maybe by 100 people or so.
Oh, okay.
But it still had a good draw, made a lot of money for that school because it's a fundraiser, and it was just so interesting seeing all these little dynamics. Like Nick Gage is like this, he's hardcore from prison, and like the little kids and cheerleaders and parents were just relating to him like this guy was their hero, and it's like if most mothers, if they saw their daughter dating this guy, would chase him away, type of thing. It was just so many amazing moments. It's also become a big, almost like the NFL Combine in a way. You have a bunch of different other promotions out there scouting the talent.
Right.
Wow, and it's become a thing where guys who kind of break out of the SCI. And their profile gets bigger and bigger and bigger. A lot of people don't remember 2 years ago, Matt Riddle, this was really the first promotion that highlighted Matt Riddle that wasn't Evolve. And so this is kind of like the floodgate that opened up to his bookings. Anthony Henry was a guy a few years ago who wasn't getting booked all over the world, all over the United States. And Scenic City, along with these guys' work ethic, and busting their asses everywhere, have opened the doors for him. PCO was on the radar before he broke out in Mania at Janela. But these guys are just using these tournaments to springboard and stuff like that. And when the guy, he wasn't actually even in the tournament, he was in the first ever Futures tournament. A guy named Marco Stunt might be all of 5'5". He's 22 going on 14, And I think this guy is going to break out. He easily could have been the Nicholas at Mania, except actually could do spots and work. And I think he might be a breakout star. Ike Cross could be a breakout star this year. That's the cool thing about it. You see these things, and it becomes like a who's who on breaking out and becoming the next possibly next star, especially in the South.
Now, what? I mean, is it is it a fair? Is it like a con? Like, it's not just wrestling, right? Is there other stuff? I mean, it goes over 2 days.
Yeah. I got in Thursday night, so there's like by my boy Ben and a bunch of others, Alex. Papa Hales, Lane. A bunch of guys who, a lot of people know on Twitter, and we got in there, and we went to dinner, went out, went to a bowling alley where we're going to bowl, but none of us bowl, so we just went down to the crappy bar in the bowling alley and drank, and then made it out to karaoke. So Papa Hales.
Oh boy.
Busting out the Sinatra, I think. He closed down the bar.
That's fantastic.
So that was that on night one. And then night two was there's a bunch of stuff. I mean, I think the next day we're just hanging out at the pool, swimming, drinking beer. Finally go to the show. And have a great night one, and then you have after night one, there's the Scenic City Prom, was what they called it this year, and it was like an absolute shit show. Like Nick Gage, who was a bunch of the wrestlers were there, a bunch of the fans, probably about the Best Western. Let's take over. There's probably about 80 people in the big old conference room, music playing, people dancing, doing this, doing that, and then the look on Nick Gage, and this is a guy who's gone to prison, and he was tweeting out, this is like the most ridiculous thing he'd ever seen in his entire life. And this is a dude who must have seen a lot of stuff in prison.
That's for sure.
And then, the next day, they had a little Q&A with the wrestlers on a panel, and then we had the hot dog eating contest, which I came in third, but that was just disgusting.
Oh, third? Come on,
Pete. Yeah, I know. My guy Ben won it, but he's on insulin, so there's like a little asterisk mark next to it.
Oh, jeez, it was rigged.
Yeah. And but there's 40 people watching this, and I felt like a zoo animal. That's how a zoo animal felt. Just people watching them shove food down their throat. It was brutal. And then we went to the Future show, and then after the Future show, we went to chilled out. Maybe we went to dinner or something, and then we went to the night 2 of Scenic City Invitational. And then after that, there was Kyle Matthews' retirement, and they had a big roast for him.
Oh, nice.
So they were doing a roast there. And then another area of the hotel, they were doing Jeopardy, wrestling Jeopardy.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And so you have all that. And then on Sunday, if you want to go to Nashville, which is about a 2-hour ride, me and Ben, we hopped on. And we drove out there and watched Southern Underground Pro Wrestling, and they put on a hell of a show.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the guys in this tournament. Who were some of the newbies that I know you mentioned a couple. Talk about some of the newbies that kind of popped up in this tournament that you got your eye on.
I mean, we had Kane Justice. He's been a guy I've been really on to for the last couple of years. He's stationed at CWF Mid-Atlantic. He's finally traveling a little bit here and there, and he's making a name for himself. He had a really fun first-round match against Gary J, where Gary J goes over. Well, I'm not going to put spoilers if people want to watch it. But it was a heck of a sprint. Ike Cross was Kyle Matthews' replacement for the tournament, and he's a guy who had, sometimes there's a difference between seeing guys live and seeing guys on tape. And Ike Cross, I admit I didn't really see him. I saw a little bit in him. I mean, you can tell he's a great athlete, but live you realize, man, I go, the dude's a handsome dude. He has cool high spots. He connects to the crowd. He had a really fun match with Corey Hollis. And you have Fred Yehai worked Mance Warner. They had a hell of a match. Joey Lynch versus Kurt Stallion was the match of night one, and they just tore the house down. Incredible match. You can put it up. I mean, it definitely was a low-level, for me, a low-level match of the year contender. You had Tuco Scorpio work AJ Gray. Gray's a guy who he was talking about retirement, but now I think he got his juices flowing again, especially after what happened at SUP, which I'll talk to you guys about in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
He had a really fun match with Scorpio. You had the crowd thinking it was center stage going, whoop, there it is. Scorpio had the oldest, I don't know where he found this gear, but the boots were straight out in 1992 from Japan because it had the Japan lettering on them and stuff.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, just nuts. You had PCO versus Cyrus the Destroyer. Cyrus the Destroyer is this big old guy who easily, if it was 1984, 85, would have been all over the territories and would have beat Jerry Lawler at least once. And just so many great matches up and down. The thing, you had Kerry Awful and Nick Cage have this wild brawl all over the building, taking bumps down the stairwell, and it got over huge. And it was really for a show that really needed to have to set the tone and kind of set the, because I mean, their booking plans, I'm sure, went out the window when these injuries happened.
Right.
And they had to really set the table for night two, and they, to me, just knocked it out of the park and gave us a lot of great matches. But what they did was set the table and do a lot of stuff booking-wise that made night two really an incredible night, and night two was incredible. And then you had Fred Yehai and AJ Gray had a real good solid match. PCO and Joey Lynch was absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys said it was their favorite match they've ever seen live. For me, I had it my second favorite match of the night. Of the week. I thought it was incredible. Another great match was War Horse versus Gary J. This is a feud that's been going all over St. Louis, and it's actually become bookers just try to run it everywhere because it's such a hot feud right now, and they just beat the living piss out of each other.
Excellent.
Hard hitting, strong style, everything you'd want in a match. It was just incredible. Those are the two that really stood out to me. But again, up and down the card, just fantastic night of wrestling. And again, really smartly booked things. Everything got over. You had this crowd that was nuclear for everything. I'm dying to see how it comes across on Powerbomb TV, which I think will be up sometime early next week would be my guess. But I don't have any inside privy to that, but that would be my guess. And it was just a tremendous show. And the final is always a four-way, and they had a really good one. But man, they had so many great matches underneath the show. There's no way the main event was going to be able to top some of the stuff that happened, and but it was still a very good main event, where they should be proud of on a great show.
So,
in between there was the Future show, and that's where the guy 22 going on 14, Marco Stunt, is the guy. So the crowd was chanting at him, "You're the guy." He was incredible to watch, being able to base off some of these giants, took an ass whooping, got over. The dude has charisma, and he'd be a benefit to be on any show. There's a lot of good talent on that show that got over. Kevin Koo was another guy. AC Mack was on the show proper the next night. They had a really fun scramble on night 2. A lot of fun stuff. And you guys should check it out if people have time, or even sign up for Powerbomb TV. And it's worth it. It's an amazing show.
So Scorpio still has it?
I mean, he's a little slower than he has, but he did. Here's spoiler, folks. Night 2, he dropped the bomb. So he did the flip into the leg drop. So
nice.
I mean, that's all I wanted from him, and we got it. I mean, he crushed the dude. He wrestled Darius Lockhart night 2 and absolutely crushed him with dropping the bomb. But yeah, he's a lot of fun. He wasn't. I mean, it wasn't like he was having blowout matches, but he definitely someone. I had a smile on my face watching him wrestle.
So where do you think Joey Lynch goes from here?
The dude can do anything. The guy is a Southern wrestler at heart. The guy can sell. The guy has spots. The guy can go strike for strike. The guy can mat wrestle. He can brawl. I mean, he really could do anything. I mean, I've been hearing stuff like they have him pegged to be going into checking out PWG, and I want to see. I was surprised to see him evolve by the end of the year with all the talent influx that's going into NXT, and the WWE is right now is in that market where they're trying to gobble up all the talent, so those shows like All In can't exist.
Now, for Saudi, how do you go about, or how does a school or something go about getting this? Like, how did Saudi Daisy High School get the Invitational, and do they get a piece of the? Obviously, I'm assuming they get a piece, but how does that work? Do you know? I mean, you may not have to know. I mean, I'm assuming. Yeah, I probably should ask Dylan. But obviously, you have to get a. I'm sure you have to probably apply or.
Yeah, I mean they've done it for 4 years, so I mean I know you're through a school, so I mean I know it's all on the up and up and all that stuff, and I really don't know because I've never promoted.
I'm just curious. Maybe one time I have Dylan on in the future. Maybe he could give us a little insight. But now November 17th. They have the Scenic City Trios. What is that?
It's a 6-man tournament. I've never gone to it, but usually they have teams, and it's I think they run 3 shows a year, maybe 4. But they do the Scenic City Rumble in January. Then they have the Scenic City Invitational, and then they do the Scenic City Trios tournament, and it pretty much is just 6-man tags.
Oh, okay. So that's coming up on November 17th,
yeah.
And they'll reveal the location in the coming weeks. How can anyone... Now, you had mentioned that people could check this out. They could watch it somewhere. Where could they watch it, the replay?
Powerbomb TV.
Okay. Do you pay for that?
.com.
I'm assuming you do.
Yeah, I'm a subscriber, and yeah, you get a lot of content. If you're a fan of indie wrestling, you're getting shows, 4 or 5 new shows a week usually. They live stream a lot of weekends. So yeah, you get a lot of content.
That's cool. All right.
For $10 a month.
Yeah, that's not too bad. No, it's the same as the network. So
yeah.
Check it out. You can go to the Scenic City Invitational Facebook page and stay up to date on everything and check out when the Scenic City Trio, we know when it is. It's going to be November 17th, but where where it'll be, maybe close to your area in Tennessee. Now, do they pretty much stay? I mean, they're based in Tennessee, I assume. They don't.
Yeah.
Okay. So somewhere in the Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee. So.
Yeah, it's usually every year. It's been, I think, the last 3 years for sure have been in Chattanooga.
Ah, okay. I want to get your opinion. We've been talking about it here on Main Event for the last couple of episodes. Of course, as you more than anyone would know, the G1 Climax is going on at the moment. A quick check of the standings at the moment, up to date. In the A block, Tanahashi leads with 14 points. Jay White and Okada are tied with 12. Then Minoru Suzuki has 8 with Evil. Michael Elgin, Hangman Page, and Bad Luck Fale. See, I got it right. With 6. And then Maccabi and Yoshihashi with 4. So Tanahashi leads Block A with 14. Block B is a tie at the top. Kenny Omega, your IWGP World Champion, and Tetsuya Naito, who won it last year, tied with 12. Actually beat Kenny in the final. Kota Ibushi, Zack Sabre Jr., who was my pick a year ago, tied with 10 points. Then Sonata, Tomohiro Ishii with 8 apiece. Haruki Goto and Tama Tonga, who's my pick this year, which clearly is not going to happen, with 6. And then, because he's not even close right now. And then Juice Robinson and Toru Yano with 4. Have you seen any of the matches? What are your thoughts on it so far?
I'm up to date on all the G1 matches. I just find it a chore to get through, honestly. The matches are just very samey. There's a lot of the same tropes. You know we're going to get a big strike off. We know there's going to be at least, I think almost every match has the count out where it reaches 19. When Okada changes up his match, it's usually he's spamming his finisher, meaning that we're going to get him to kick out of Okada's finisher. Same thing with Omega. We know he's never going to win a match with his V-trigger, even though the thing's brutal, and he should at least win it once. It's almost like I get less and less back from it because of the same. We know you're going to get. I know we're going to get a lot of kickouts. They do have good psychology a lot of times, but yeah, to me it becomes a chore. And the matches. I get where a lot of people love the matches, and I had my fair share of ones I really like. But when I hear people say there's like 56 4-star matches, they've above, I find that almost like baffling to me. There's a lot of good matches, but there's a lot of just mediocre or stuff that never really got going for me, and stuff. I think. Every time Yano worked, I think I would have him work the middle match instead of the opener, because that's what he does. He opens almost like all of them. I think you need a breather. Let him put his comedy in the middle after the first two. Put him there, and then have the big 2 matches afterwards. I think the matches might breathe a little better. But that's just me. But I can see where a lot of people just love it. It's a style that people are really into now. But I think it's a flawed style. Like every style, it's different. But I understand where some people think it's the bomb, and I understand it. It's not me. I like more deeper storytelling, and storytelling to me doesn't mean kicking out at 2 or 2.9. That's great, but honestly, if you watch it back, it loses its luster because it's a high spot. It's not really actually a detail, something interesting like watching a guy work an arm and sell it. And a lot of times you see a lot of I'm generalizing here. You see a lot of like Ibushi. I think is an incredible talent, but you'll see guys just destroy his leg. Right. And then he'll shit can it on his comebacks, and it's like, man, it would matter to me if his leg would crumble a little, right, and come up short. Or I call it Ricky Steamboat when he was a coach. They always refer to Steamboat had gear changes where when he went from a cell, he never went to gear 5, because if you're in a car, you strip your gears. You need to go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to build up that momentum.
Right.
And nowadays, I think New Japan, a lot of times, I'm the guy, you might be in a dead cell, and all of a sudden, Kenny Omega's at a 5 already, you know?
Right.
Instead of slowly. Those are just flaws of the general style I have. But I think a lot of the people are into that video game mentality nowadays. And that's cool.
Longest match, based on the chart I see, the longest match so far was Okada and Jay White went 25-36. Seems like the average match.
I thought Okada and Suzuki went 30.
Okada, have they wrestled yet?
Yeah.
Okada Elgin, Okada Evil, Okada Suzuki. According to this, they went 18-20.
Okay, then maybe I'm in a dream world then. Okay.
Maybe it felt like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, according to them, 18-20. The longest match, I combed this whole thing on Wiki, and the one I see here, Okada and Jay White went 25-36. Seems like, on average, they go between 13 and 19, or maybe like 13 and 21 minutes for most of these matches. So at the moment, the final would be, well, it's tough to say, because Kenny and Naito are tied. Tanahashi's up by 2. Let's put it this way. If the final, if it's Tanahashi and Kenny, who wins? And if it's Tanahashi and Naito, who wins?
I mean, if it's Tanahashi and Naito, I think Naito goes over.
2 years in a row, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if it's Tanahashi and Kenny, I think they might go with Kenny. Tell that story, but I don't know.
Well, doesn't Kenny... the show... Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The show where the finals of the tournament will happen, I'm assuming he's going to have to defend the world title, or the heavyweight title. So you think they're going to double up that night for him?
No, they won't. He won't be on that final night. It'll be the title will be defended. Usually, the winner of the G1 usually gets a shot at his belt at Wrestle Kingdom.
Okay.
But if he wins the whole tournament, I think it might be a way of cementing that this is the guy for a while.
Yeah, true. Maybe New Japan may want to think about that if WWE is thinking of throwing the hook from the fishing pole out, particularly if their deals are up in January. So
and if New Japan's serious about running the States, I mean, the smartest thing if you're going to draw would be having an American on top.
That's true. That's true. Speaking of American, while I have you on, let's talk a little bit about All In, which is coming up in a few weeks. What are your thoughts on, before we get to like the matches themselves that are booked for the moment, what are your thoughts on the concept in general? It's
amazing. I wouldn't think in a million years that they would be able to do it, and I was wrong. They're grassroots. It's making it happen. Without television, I didn't think it was possible, because, I mean, wrestling's always been a television-geared show. And I'm like, yeah, a lot of these talents are on television, but it wasn't a TV show geared to doing this. And it just shows how different, how you can hook a platform and do something interesting with it, like the Young Bucks and Cody doing their little shtick on on YouTube, and made it a viable way, and making themselves seem like big stars, and being able to draw. I didn't think it was possible, and they've made it.
Mm-hmm. Here's the card at the moment. I don't know if this will be added, but we'll see. Right now, there's 9 matches, 2 pre-show matches, and then 7 on the card. This is what they have so far. On the pre-show, the Briscoe brothers will take on SoCal Uncensored, which is Frankie K and Scorpio Sky. And then they're going to have a 15-person over-budget battle royal to determine who will face Jay Lethal later on in the night for the Ring of Honor World Championship. So that's one big match. The card itself, Nick Aldis, a.k.a. Magnus, will take on Cody Rhodes to defend his NWA World title. Okada will face Marty Scurll. Joey Janela will face Hangman Page. Rey Mysterio, who was signed recently. Phoenix and Bandito will take on the Golden Elite, which is, of course, the Bucks and Ibushi in a six-man. Christopher Daniels will take on Stephen Amell.
I'm a big Arrow fan, so I love the fact.
Me too. I love Arrow too. Yep.
Yeah.
And Madison Rayne versus Britt Baker versus Chelsea Green versus Tessa Blanchard in a four-way. And then, as I mentioned, the main event, Jay Lethal will defend the Ring of Honor World title against the winner of the Battle Royal in the pre-show.
And the rumor also going around, there's Omega and Pentagon in play.
Yes. Yeah. You got to put Kenny. Kenny's going to be on the show in some capacity.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this is part of the whole StarCast weekend, too, that Conrad and all those guys are putting together, too, all the podcasts and everything. So, should be a fun weekend in Chicago.
Have you paid for that thing? How much they're charging?
It's not cheap, right? Isn't the mega pack like fucking $700 or something, or $750? Or it's more than that, right?
I know. I saw $179 on, like, when you get the streaming service. I think 179 is ridiculous if you think people are going to buy that. But there's going to be some marks who do. I don't like to use that term mark, but if you're spending that much for a streaming package, you're a mark. I couldn't believe I was seeing some of this stuff, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the StarCast site.
I saw the Fight Network package. It was like $179. And you get a $10 free fight package with it. So I guess that's $160.
It says until the 10th until tomorrow. You can order the Fight Weekend Pass, Fight F-I-T-E, Weekend Pass for only $79.
Okay, $79. Okay.
Yeah, that's till tomorrow. Tickets in general. Let's see. Oh, here we go. All right. You get a VIP. There's a VIP breakfast with a bang hosted by DDP. That's $79. That's the VIP breakfast. You can get just breakfast for $45. The general admission weekend pass is $49. The after party event with there's an after party event with Tennille Dashwood, aka Emma. That's $29. Rey Mysterio meet and greet's $100. Pentagon Jr. meet and greet is $40. Then there's some other meet and greets. Phoenix, Dalton Castle, Arn Anderson, $50. Wow. Conan, $35. NWO reunion, Nash, Hall, and Waltman for $100. Arn Tully and JJ for $65. Anyway, there's a bunch of meet and greet stuff. Now, what do you think of this concept with all the podcasts and everything? I mean, it's pretty ingenious, I would think, right? Maybe it's something that can catch on, kind of like an indie version of WrestleMania, where they can all come together, different time of the year. Maybe it's something, maybe it's something to kick around that could work out.
I don't know. Most of the podcasts, I don't even know who the heck they are, honestly.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so here's your ticket prices, Pete. Silver bracelet is $59. The gold bracelet is $129. Yes, the platinum VIP bracelet is $179. All right, so I was going a little bonkers. I thought it was more than that. I was like $700. The daily general admission is $20. The weekend pass general admission is $50. So it looks like, let's see, VIP bracelet. All right, so the daily general admission's $20, and it's vendor room for picks and autos, common areas, not on sale yet. Then the weekend pass for the same thing's $49. The silver bracelet is $59, and you get access to all the weekend events, seating not guaranteed. The gold bracelet is $129, access to all weekend events and secondary seating option. And then the platinum bracelet VIP is $179. Access to all weekend events, priority seating, and 15% off select purchases. So, interesting. I wonder how many of those they have. I wonder if there's a finite number. Curious about that.
'cause one of the things I was looking at was the streaming part of it, because I'm not going to be there. And I thought I saw $179 for you get access to all the podcasts. And then I wondered, does that include Meltzer's and them because they have their own network? I mean, who knows? And then you get to watch the streaming thing, and that's pretty pricey for something to stay at your home and watch. And I mean, I can't imagine how you could have time to listen to all the podcasts there. But I think it's cool. It's just kind of like the WrestleMania. I mean, it's a cash grab for WrestleCade type of thing.
All right, according to this, limited availability, limited StarCast edition on Fight, F-I-T-E, or Feet. I'm guessing it's Fight. I always forget. Now only your favorite wrestling podcast hosts be performing their shows live on multiple stages, and you can join them on Fight for enjoy over 20 live stage shows featuring legends, Hall of Famers, celebrities, and of course some of the top podcasters around, like Bruce Pritchard, Bischoff. Bischoff's a top podcaster, please, and Sean Waltman's a top podcaster. In case you're interested, live on every screen. The weekend pass is exclusive to Fight fans. Orders are available until midnight on the 10th for $80.
Okay, $80. Okay.
So, yeah. So, and again, amongst all the podcasts, the Botchamania, Bischoff's, the War Debate, which is Bischoff versus Pritchard, what's his name? Shivani's. Yeah, the 4-Star Summit between Meltzer and, I can't think of the other guy's name. Looks like there's an empty arena retrospective between Funk and Lawler. That's interesting.
That's interesting.
There's a Raven Effect, his podcast. They're going to roast Pritchard. There's a Wrestle Crap podcast. A bunch of different stuff. There's a DDP Yoga podcast. Mooney is having his. So there's a bunch of different ones.
Conrad Thompson was at night one of SCI.
Was he really? Interesting.
Yeah.
I tell you something. Let me tell you, I'm curious your opinion here too, Pete, because I talk to Dr. G about this all the time. Conrad might be a guy, of course, for those, Conrad obviously produces Pritchard's podcast, Bischoff's, a couple others. He seems to think, and tell me if you agree with this or not, he seems to think that Conrad's going to be a player in the, because Conrad's not hurting. Obviously, it's pretty lucrative real estate business. Him and Pritchard work together on that, and he's obviously engaged to the other daughter, not Charlotte, the other Flair daughter.
Right. Ashley.
Ashley, thank you. And I feel like he's a guy who can be in the wrestling landscape, like a guy that could buy a piece of an indie or help out with an indie, either promotionally or what have you. Like, he could end up being a big player in the wrestling landscape. You think?
I don't want to say it on air, but I can tell you some stories off air about him.
Oh, okay. I like that. Ooh.
Yeah, I just don't want to, because I've had people tell me these things in confidence.
Oh, of course. Oh, understandable. Absolutely, of course. But I like Conrad, and I think he's a good. I think he could be a guy again that could maybe be a player in the landscape. But
he has the money.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. So we'll talk more about StarCast. I guess this limited edition weekend pass is $80 till midnight tomorrow night, August 10th. So I don't know if that's midnight tonight or if that's midnight. I don't know. Anyway, Pete, it's been a lot of fun, man. I appreciate you coming on. Pete Schirmacher, everybody.
Oh, yeah, one other thing before I get off.
Yeah, please. No, what do you got?
Take me off.
What you got?
I just want to say about the sub show that was in Nashville. It was a great show also. And the closing angle was Dylan Hales had a lead commentary, got his ass kicked by the heels to a lot of heat, and got buried underneath the Tennessee flag. So that's and he ate a curb stomp. And I was there live, and that thing was absolutely nuts. I'm screaming, going bananas. One of the heels was like actually looking at me. I could tell. He's like, I was drinking beer with you last night, fool. What are you doing? Because I was screaming and going nuts because the angle was. I'm one of those fans who, when I go to a show and I go in there with the mentality, I'm coming to watch a movie, make me believe. and they did a great job there. I'll tell you that.
I'll let Triple H know what happened to Dylan. I'm sure he'd smile. Pete, hey, why don't you join us on our next show? Episode 108. Steve Willie is choosing the two New Japan Classic match picks. They're both Liger.
Awesome.
So I'd love to have you come on and join Nate, Steve, and I. Chad.
Sounds great.
All right, we'll see you. We'll have you back in 2 weeks. Pete Schirmacher, everybody, the sheriff, who says Nick Duke now needs to have a barbecue truck at next year's SCI. That's the next upgrade from Chick-fil-A. When we come back on the main event, Steve will be with me, and we will have our next edition of the TNA Classic TNA Classic pay-per-view recap. We go back to July 31st, 2002. We have dwarfs, guns, and Goldilocks. I'm Brother Scott. Thanks, Pete. More main event after this.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which of course includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place for Nations, JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceForNation.com. We offer them to you on two great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation Wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the Place to Be podcast, along with Main Event, Survey Says, the Monday Night Wars, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction show, as well as Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver special network podcasts and pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Match of the Week podcast, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Through the Years, Worldcast, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Center Stage, and Letters from Kayfabe, plus much more. And on our very popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as Talkin' Pop, the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, NBA Team, PTBN Play, Sunday Groove, Breaking Balls, and Lucha Undead.
As well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans.
With the hard-traveling fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversations, Geek and Sassy, and Marvel Age podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows, plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback today. All these shows, plus others, available at PlayStation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects, and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlayStation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, and historyofwrestling.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlayStation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Welcome back to Place to Be Nation's main event. It is good to be back.
Whoa. What the hell did you get in here?
It's the craziest thing, Scotty. Like, the last thing I remember is I was down in New Orleans near the Superdome for some reason, and there was this crazy Caucasian chick who had, like, it looked like butter knives mixed with glow sticks. Like, they were knives, but they lit up. And when she touched me, I disappeared. And now I'm here for some reason. I don't know how I got here. I'm wearing my dead brother's hoodie, which is strange because I don't have a brother. I never had, and I don't think I will, not at this stage of the game. So I don't know why I'm here. But let's just say that I'm glad to be back with my divine podcast pairing here, Scotty, on the main event.
Well, first off, episode 107, folks. Welcome back. Well, first off, you do have a brother, Steve. Well, and me, I guess. Number two, we have to do some deduction here. Was it Jennifer Smith? Was it Jenny? Wasn't
no,
Jenny,
it wasn't. It wasn't Jenny. It wasn't Jenny.
Stacey O'Loughlin?
No,
she's magical.
No, it wasn't Stacey.
Wasn't Stacey, huh?
And Rish.
Nick Duke in drag. Nick Duke dressed like Caitlyn.
She looked like Kelly, but she ran the ring ropes much better. And then she kept telling me her name was Tandy, and so I didn't get it. I didn't know what type of flim-flam, what type of gaga, what type of cloak and dagger shenanigans were going on. But I'm just glad to be here. I'm just glad to be back.
Well, it's good to have you on, Brother Nate. We want to thank our man, Sheriff Pete Schirmacher, for joining us in segment 1 and pinch hitting for you, Brother Nate.
Fun fact for all the listeners out there, Pete Schirmacher is not just my fill-in here on the main event, but in real life, too. He fills in for me when I can't make it to work or church or my local meeting of the NAACP. Pete is always there. So shout out to you, Brother Schirmacher.
Yes, because when I think of people that can cover for you, I think of Pete. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, the man calls a hell of a high school football game.
That's true. Woo! All right, well, before we move on with our fun and games of the B block, don't forget to go to PlaceBeNation.com for the greatest song of the 80s brackets. We are continuing the first round, and then we'll be getting into the second round very soon. It'll still be eliminations, but we got plenty more songs that have to be re-voted. Steve, what do you think of the voting so far? Not enough Cult or not enough Cure, maybe?
There needs to be Duran Duran in every single section. That's
I know,
all I
right?
gotta say.
I know, right? Girls on Film, and not like the regular stuff. Even though, like, who would you say is your favorite Duran Duran song, Steve?
Oh, Girls on Film's a classic. I'm partial to Union of the Snake just
I
because
like
it was
Union
a kid
of
of my
Snake.
childhood.
Yes. Mine's
It's
probably
a
Rio.
little bit of a deep cut.
Mine's probably Rio. I know that's so, like, cliche, but
Sure.
I love Rio. Actually, my favorite Duran Duran song wasn't even in the 80s. Ordinary World.
Oh, sure.
Love that song.
Duran Duran was Reflex, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's probably got to be my favorite Duran Duran.
And Notorious. That's a good song, too. Mm-hmm. And not B.I.G. That's the other song.
Another fun fact, they were going to have a Duran Duran Notorious B.I.G. mashup before he was killed. So that would have been great.
That would have been tremendous. Oh, my God.
And one of the worst parts of Biggie's death is that we didn't get to live that through.
I know. Yeah, it sucks.
They would have remixed the View to a Kill.
Hey, that's a tremendous, well, I wouldn't say tremendous Bond movie, but it's not too bad. Hey, back to back, View to a Kill was the fun fact, was the first #1 Bond song. Even For Your Eyes Only, which is one of my favorites, wasn't even number one. Think of Aha, who had to back that up with the Living Daylights. I mean, really.
How crazy is that there was some weird moment in the zeitgeist where Aha, of all people, got that on.
I like the fact, Steve, that Nate said zeitgeist. Did you come up with that word for him during some of your brother sessions? Steve, have you ever had to say zeitgeist in one of your sessions?
No, I've said much worse, though.
Yeah. Well, my two favorite words are Dwarf Destroyer, which we're going to get into tonight. Anyway, why don't we dive in? Gentlemen, of course, this week it is time for our classic TNA pay-per-view recap. And we go back, gentlemen, to July 31st, 2002. for pay-per-view number 7. We're at the fairgrounds again in Nashville. So this was probably, I'm guessing, Steve, this was taped from the week before?
It might have been. I don't know exactly, but by the end of the show, you see that it started to clean out a little bit. A lot less people in the seats. So
right.
I would bet that this was the end of a long day of taping.
That's what I'm assuming too. That it's
poor bastards.
Yeah, schlubs. Just to recap our champions, our NWA World Champion still Ken Shamrock. Our X Division champion is AJ Styles, who we'll see a lot of this evening. And our tag team champions, who we'll also see a lot of this evening, are AJ Styles and Jerry Lynn. We'll see both of them this evening, as a matter of fact. Steve, the show actually, we have that usual open, and then we actually dive right into the show. We don't even get the little Mike Tenay lips pursing open with Don West and Ed Ferrara. They kind of do that after the first match. We actually kind of dive right in, and the opener is...
Opener is, as posted on our Facebook page, the X Division title championship bout between primetime Elix Skipper, your challenger, and your champion, AJ Styles, who's got his best buddy, Jerry Lynn. This week they're friends. Or are they?
They seem to have patched things up from last week, right? Sort of? They had that little chat with Mike Tenay, or was it Don? I think it was Tenay, up in the empty fairground seats.
Which may have happened in the last match of the show. That might have
been
where they had that.
I know, right? It's true.
Important to note that AJ, this is the first notice of his popular TNA song. I know it got remixed a little bit over the years, but away from that kind of country song, which is we'll hear later on, and into his new theme.
Yes, this was the debut, I guess, of the Dale Oliver Get Ready to Fly. Did you notice Elix Skipper's theme song, though, Steve?
I did not. I noticed his ring gear.
Elix Skipper's theme song. This was before he got the wonderful Roy Jones Jr., you almost forgot knockoff. Mm-hmm. The music was the theme song that would eventually go on to become the Pope song.
Okay.
But the lyrics were like, it was like this was made for Ernest the Cat Miller, and Ernest the Cat Miller never signed, because the lyrics were very much a James Brown knockoff put over what would become the Pope's theme. But yeah, it just, because I just heard the horns, and I was like, hold on, let me rewind it. I had to go back and those are the Pope's horns. It's like they just kind of repackaged the song. I think it fit the Pope better though when he would debut years later.
I knew it sounded familiar. I just wasn't quite sure what made it sound familiar, but yeah, I didn't even catch that. Good call, Brother Nate. I didn't even notice that.
I do know that his FUBU gear was a good vote. My vote for most early 2000s.
Oh, big time. Oh, my God, so big time. Wow, I totally forgot.
Of course, FUBU popularized by Terry Bollea.
Yes, yes. That means for us, by us, and the us in that case is Hulkamaniacs, of course.
Exactly. Amazing. Absolutely.
You have to be at least 6 feet tall to wear this gear.
And he barely made the line. He grew a little. Well, the funny thing is, Brother Nate, he grew a little bit of a fro. He didn't have a fro in WCW. So
no,
he had a little bit going there. So the 6 foot just made it from the hair. So without the hair, he was 5'10" and a half. So anyway, but I mean, on paper, not a bad opener. And I think the shows, we've got a couple of stinkers. I think we really needed, Steve and Nate, a good, on paper, good way to get the show fired up. I think we've had too much, like, Jeff Jarrett fucking around the last 2 shows, and I feel like we needed to pull the ripcord on this one and get off to a good start.
But it feels like they're kind of finding their footing and the kind of rejiggering of the company that we talked about a couple of episodes ago with Jerry Jarrett seeing the money that was lost. There's still a lot of dumb stuff on this show. Well, not a lot. There's still some dumb stuff on this episode this week. Right. But the focus, and I guess we could say that about the last episode too, pay-per-view number 6, there seems to be more of a focus on the in-ring.
Yes, I concur. Steve?
Yeah, and you can tell right off the bat because they, even in the preview, they talked about the matches that were going to be on, and they already mentioned that Jerry Lynn would be wrestling later on.
Yep.
So you're starting to have a reason to stay tuned in. Of course, if you're paying $9.99 a week, you're going to be forced to turn in.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to not pay attention. Exactly.
And so two X Division matches told to you right off the bat is, already got me perked up a little bit. Like, okay, we're going to be guaranteed at least 2 decent matches here, and that's, going to take up maybe half hour of the show. And we saw a decent match. I thought at some points in the middle, there was some miscommunication at times, and I wasn't sure if AJ got his bell rung at one point, and that caused to it. I don't know if you guys noticed that towards the end.
I did.
Yeah, it was kind of very much classic X Division style, for better for worse. For the better is that we get these young, hungry, athletic guys out here trying really hard, as opposed to some of the veterans who feel like they're just there picking up a check. But the con, of course, the worst is that they're not the crispest technicians at this stage of their careers. And so you will see some sloppiness, you will see some blown spots, and occasionally, like you said, Steve, you'll see a guy get his bell rung, by a move not going quite the way they planned it.
Yeah, and in the end, it actually was very smooth. I was pretty impressed the way it flowed together. It was, Elix went for the play of the day. AJ just immediately reversed it into a Styles Clash, which Elix somehow reversed it and got a springboard off the top rope, was going for something. AJ kicked the rope, and Elix landed flat on his noggin.
Yeah.
AJ jumped out and hit the spiral tap or the spinal tap to win it. And the basis of this, the story of this match was Jerry Lynn saying that everything was okay and how they worked everything out and putting over how athletic AJ is, and Jerry got to teach him some stuff over the past week, and he thinks they're all together. So right away that at some point this is foreshadowing. It was too over the top obvious, but I thought Jerry Lynn did a good job, and at least he didn't make a racist comment like his co-commentator at Ferrara.
Yeah.
There were a couple things that surprised me about this match, Scotty. The first thing was that Elix got as much offense as he did. This was 50-50. I would argue maybe you could even say 60-40 in terms of Elix having the upper hand for a lot of this match. The other thing that surprised me was just going back and watching the first 7 pay-per-views from TNA, I didn't realize how much AJ relied on the spiral tap.
Yeah.
I think, when we see him in later years, kind of the peak of TNA, he is much more discerning about it, and it feels more special when he breaks it out. Whereas now, I think, we've seen AJ wrestle on every show, and he's probably used that move on 5 out of the 7 shows we watched.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely did. It feels like his style, no pun intended, at the moment, is to kind of set up for that. And to Elix Skipper's credit, and I agree with you with this, Steve, with this point, and Nate, I think you said it too, that Elix definitely got more shine than we thought. The shocker, by the way, it is actually the second longest match of the night. Did it feel like the longest?
Makes sense.
Did it feel like the longest?
Say it felt long, but in a good way. Like it didn't feel like the match was dragging, but I definitely noticed the length in comparison to some of the other stuff that we get on this week's show. But it wasn't an issue where I was like, looking at my watch, when is this going to end? It was like, oh, wow, I thought that was going to be the finish there. And then we go another 2-3 minutes. Oh, I thought that was going to be the finish. And it keeps building and building till, we culminate with the spiral tap. So I thought it was a good showing by both guys. AJ looked strong in victory, and you didn't waste Elix Skipper in this loss. So I thought it helped both guys out.
Yep, it did. Your match time, by the way, 12:37. So decent length, and again, not the longest match of the night. That will come a little later. I thought Lynn did good commentary. One thing about the commentary, even though Ed Ferrara put his foot in his mouth multiple times, I guess that's his sort of job. I do feel like the commentary thus far, as we've now reached 7 episodes, has leveled out a little bit. They're not as annoying. They're kind of into each other at the moment, no pun intended, and TNA is definitely the alpha in terms of getting the story across, but I think Don West and Ferrara are actually not bad bouncing off each other. Actually not bad. What do you think,
Well,
Steve?
I think a lot of that has to do with what we've been talking about the reduction in the amount of stupid sex jokes and angles that we've seen over the last couple of weeks.
Right.
Because that was like as bad as Mark Madden was in the character of Mark Madden was the dying days of WCW. I think Ferrara might have been worse the first couple of episodes of TNA, where he just had to go for the overt sexual jokes and innuendo, and it just ruined the flow between the three guys. So I think toning that down makes Ed Ferrara a little bit more palatable, at least in my opinion, Steve.
It does, and we'll see some of that come back tonight. Also, no pun intended. And but yeah, when they're actually commenting on the matches themselves, Ferrara, depending on who is in the ring, he will kind of comment down a little bit, and they'll have more of straightforward commentary. If it's one of his guys who he's decided to strap onto, like a Jarrett or an R-Truth, it gets a little bit over the top. But yeah, overall, I think they are better, and Don West is like that third person who gives you a little bit more of that energy and does really well, I think, in these X Division matches. And I can't believe I'm complimenting Don West and Ed Ferrara. What is wrong with me?
No, really. I think it's that action figure.
But in a match like this, where you're going to want to pop for these crazy big moves that you're not used to seeing, you need someone like that. And he's got a lot of energy. And there's something I do want to compliment him on later on at the end of the show as well.
Okay. And then after the match, AJ and Jerry Lynn walk off together as buddy and buddy, and of course tag team champions. Meanwhile, Elix Skipper is trying to leave, and all of a sudden out comes my boy, the alpha male, Monty Brown, and he comes out and he beats the shit out of Elix Skipper. Going back to the episode the previous week where he got set up by him in the Truth. More on the Truth later. What do you think of their booking of Monty through these first few weeks, Nate?
It's interesting. I mean, obviously they have a lot of, I wouldn't go as far as to say respect, knowing who is in the creative room at the time. But I would certainly say that they are fond of the athleticism, the look, and the talking ability of Monty Brown. I think it's just unfortunate, knowing where this story plays out, that they didn't do more with him, because he is one of the few people, I will say, that just kind of pops out as being a guy that could be a star that could cross over. We got a lot of great talent on the show, but even if you look at somebody like AJ Styles or even a Jerry Lynn, I don't think they have a breakout look or a style at this point. AJ would eventually go on to have that. But if you're talking about, out of these first 7 episodes, who are your top 10 guys in terms of you could show this to a casual fan and get them excited? I think Monty Brown would be in that list of top 10 guys, because he just kind of pops off the screen.
I know we see him again a little bit later on, but did this make sense, Steve, towards the end here? Kind of Monty Brown cleaning up the garbage, I suppose?
For that part of the end of the segment, yes, this did make sense. That he got outsmarted last episode. Well, tricked. I wouldn't even say outsmarted.
Right.
And then he, a little embarrassed and turns into anger. And yeah, he just unloaded on Elix Skipper, who already had a match, of course. And that the movie did, where he had a press slam into a fall-away slam, just kind of dropped and caught him and threw him back like Bradshaw or Scott Hall. That was impressive. That got a big pop out of me, and it showed. It was almost Goldberg-esque in terms of a jackhammer is like such a quick snap, powerful move.
Yep.
Where that's something athletically where you're like, whoa, that's a star, and he carried himself that way.
Yeah, good way to put it. And it won't be the last time we see him. We'll see him a little bit later on. So AJ Styles retains the X Division Championship as he beats Elix Skipper in 12:37. We thought the show would be off to such a great start, Steve and Nate. And then we go to the table, and our trio, Mr. Tenay, Mr. West, Mr. Ferrara, let us know what else is going on the rest of the evening. And then out comes... well, he gives an update first. Mike Tenay gives an update on the situation between what happened with last week with Ken Shamrock, who, of course, had that great ladder match with Sabu, and then out came Malice, who actually stole the NWA belt, and the situation with Jeff Jarrett, who lost his mind. Now, we saw him in the first week when all the legends came out, but apparently, I guess, Ricky Steamboat has become, like, the commissioner or something?
Yes.
He's become the commissioner of the NWA.
At least our authority figure of the week.
Yes. They were supposed to have a meeting this week in the NWA offices. Where were they? What are they in? Like Motionik's basement or next to the pool? And so the NWA World Title belt safely back to our champion, Ken Shamrock.
With no explanation, off screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Like Malice just had a change of heart driving back from the arena.
Yeah. Jeff Jarrett did not go to this meeting. And then we hear... and then what may be the most ludicrous...
This is the most convoluted part.
Yes. And it may not even be the most ridiculous... It's not even the most ridiculous segment of the evening. But out comes Jarrett carrying a sack with somebody squirming in it. I think my favorite line was Ed Ferrara. What's in the sack? Bill Barron's ego? I thought that was a good line. That made me laugh. So Jarrett goes on, Steve and Nate, and it goes on his whole tirade that he keeps getting screwed, and he should be the number one contender, and he should have the title shot with Ken Shamrock. And he decides, yes, I did not go to the meeting with Ricky Steamboat. However, I have decided, Jeff Jarrett has, that he's going to play by the rules. He will do what the NWA/TNA tells him. So they told him he needs to start at the bottom. So he starts at the bottom. He undoes the burlap sack. And in the sack is a bound and gagged midget.
Todd Stone.
Immediately, because Matt Rotella sits behind me, turns to me and goes, "Oh, your favorite segment ever, isn't it?" I said, I like where it's going. So he says, I'm going to beat the shit out of this dwarf. So Jeff Jarrett beats the shit out of this, about, what's his name, Todd Stone?
Todd Stone, I think it was.
Todd Stone, a bound and gagged dwarf. He gave him the stroke, and Ed Ferrara said it, and then Jarrett goes, I just had a mini stroke. It's so fucking stupid. Anyway, he beats the shit out of this midget. Now, what's a good midget segment without the greatest midget ever? And Brother Nate's favorite midget of all time.
Correction, he's not a midget, he's a dwarf.
He's a dwarf, yes.
Treat him with some respect.
With some respect, I'm sorry. Little people, although he's really not that little. Out comes Puppet, not in the trash can, hands clearly clean, and he gets in, and he gets in Jarrett's face, and Jarrett says, why don't you do this, and Puppet's yakking, and Steve... Why don't you tell us what happens next?
Well, Puppet obviously is upset because he is the only one who can destroy midgets.
Right.
And so he is upset at Jarrett. Jarrett is kind of just laughs, and he's like, okay, one more guy can beat up. So, Puppet gets tired of the midget jokes and says, I'm going to beat you up. And then instead of beating him up, he just, pulls a gun out of his pants.
That's not a euphemism.
No, it's not. It's not a puppet. It's not the Dups in a garbage can or Puppet in a garbage can. He actually took a gun. And God bless the fans in Nashville, because, I don't know, fake or not, if I see someone pull a gun out of their pants, I'm leaving.
Yeah, I'm done.
That's good. I don't care if it's fake or real or whatever. I don't expect a midget to have a unloaded gun.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
So
yeah.
When faced with a angry midget a psycho dwarf, if you will. With a gun, you give him a weak chair shot. That's what you generally do.
Yes.
Now, if it's some loser like security guard, fake security guards, or just like guys backstage, then you hit him full bore with a chair straight in the head, concuss him. If it's a tied up midget, then you give him a pile driver and a stroke. But if it's a midget with a gun, you tap him on the back with the chair. I think Puppet had a respect of everyone in the locker room.
Followed by an arrest warrant.
And then poor Ulick Skipper, who's already been beaten by 8 Styles. He's been destroyed by Monty Brown. Jarrett hits him with a chair because he's still in the ring. So he's like, I'm going to hit you with a chair too. Because why not?
And then he tells somebody, I'm trying to remember who, you can call me the Dwarf Destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
If Pro Wrestling Tees, or I actually went to Impact's website, maybe they had it saved. If there was ever a shirt that said the Dwarf Destroyer, I would literally wear it every day for the rest of my life. I wouldn't care if I wouldn't care if it stuck to me. I would, because that's that. Oh, well. Anyway, I don't know what the gist of this was. I really don't. And then of course, Scott Hall comes out and says, you've taken me out on stretchers the last couple of times. Well, I'm taking you out on a stretcher. Now, I don't know if that officially meant that it was a stretcher match. I was confused. I don't think it was later on in the evening, but they made it seem like it was. And I like the fact that they used like an old school military stretcher, like those ones that were like on MASH instead of like an actual, instead of, ones on wheels like in real life. No, we're going to pull one out of the 4077. Is he for fucking real?
I thought it was a hammock at first.
I know.
I thought they just didn't have an actual stretcher. So I guess just kidding. No, they just went to the Army Navy surplus store down the road.
Exactly. They just they're using a stretcher from like 1945. Oh my god. Anyway, this segment was utterly ridiculous, and I don't understand the need for a gun to be pulled. I just, fake or not, I agree with you, Steve. I'd be crapping my pants if this was live. I don't know how they would get away with that.
Yeah, this
pay-per-view, brother.
There's certain things that just cross the line of my suspension of disbelief, and having a gun in a wrestling context is one of them. Now, if you're gonna do it, there's a way to give it gravitas and make it serious. Whether you're talking about the Pillman's got a gun, or Stone Cold going hunting.
Yeah.
For Vince McMahon, there's a way to do it and make it feel real within the story. But this, when you had Puppet just pull the gun out, it's like, come on, man. Like, do you want this? This does not bolster Jeff Jarrett's credibility. This does not.
No.
This does not make him feel like the top heel in the promotion, which is what he should be at this point. At least that's what they want him to be. So yeah, this is one of Impact / TNA's more infamous segments from their early days, and rightfully so, because it's just like the old adage in wrestling, like when you're doing a promo, you shouldn't say I'm gonna murder you, I'm gonna kill you, because you can't back that up. You can't back that up in the ring. And so the threat of this little person, this dwarf, this midget, assaulting everybody and committing what I'm assuming would be mass homicide in defense of his little brethren, that just didn't fly.
No, it's shock is one thing, but
and we don't even like Puppet. That's the other thing. If Puppet was a sympathetic character, maybe, but we don't even like Puppet.
Right, it's not like the Haiti Kid pulled a gun,
Yeah, this isn't
Little Beaver.
Who's the guy, Steve, from the Hogan's Micro Wrestling? Was it it was like Little Samson or something like that?
Yep. Yeah, I think so.
It wasn't Little Samson was friendly. Like he looked like a little mini Mr. Clean. Like Little Samson. I think it might have been Strongman Samson, something like
Short
that.
sleeve
Samson. Yeah, short sleeve Samson. If he pulled a gun in self defense, I'm with that. But Puppet, we don't care about Puppet.
No, the sympathy just isn't there, and pulling out a firearm certainly does not help matters.
In segment 2, no less.
I know, right? It tells you what
the second segment of the story.
Arguably the best match of the night to this.
Right.
Yeah. And fortunately, we do get back to the ring because our next match, I was actually kind of looking forward to it. Just because of the dichotomy of the two guys, I thought maybe this something would be very interesting here. But before the match, we go backstage where my girl Goldilocks interviews Sonny Siaki's ass, apparently, and Sonny Siaki, says that Goldilocks is hitting on him, and she seems to look fairly impressed. So maybe she was. Who knows?
They're like an off-Broadway version of The Rock and Lillian Garcia.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much. Off-Broadway. That's a great way to put it, Nate. I like that, off-Broadway.
It's that Radio City Music Hall. It's like, some dinner theater in Buffalo.
We know people from Buffalo, right, Steve?
Yeah, indeed.
Now, this interview, Steve, brings us to our next match, which is...
the aforementioned Sonny Siaki of the Flying Elvises without any of his fellow Elvises against Slash of the New Church. And Slash's eye has become a little more disturbing, and he's with James Mitchell, who has some sort of box.
A box?
Mm-hmm.
What is the box?
And I did some research, because Mitchell was on commentary. We went from Jerry Lynn to James Mitchell, and as the match is going on, and there's a great little start of the segment where Siaki's on the apron, he does a Rana to the floor on Slash, and Mitchell says in the black box is the blood of, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, Audad. So Steve, in his infinite wisdom, goes, well, I got to find out what this is. And all I could really find is that an Audad is a hard-to-kill, like, mountain goat type creature that's combined with a sheep. And it's apparently some animal of legend. I was assuming it had something to do with the Great Beyond, but I don't know. It just seems like a sheep goat to me, which makes the whole next couple of segments seem really funny. So, Slash and James Mitchell's trying to get over the fact that you want to join them and evolve or perish and become extinct. So trying to get new members of the church. It's a really weird dynamic, too, because Siaki has been presented as a heel the last couple of weeks. And in the interview beforehand, very egotistical, very arrogant. And here he's against Slash, so he kind of has to wrestle as a face. He gets beaten up halfway through, and you're trying to gain some sympathy, but, no one really believes it, because to the fans' credit, they've been there for the last couple of weeks and seen how he's acted, so it's the crowd is kind of heatless, and really if they filmed this match directly after Puppet waving a gun around, I don't mind them for being heatless.
Yeah, this was... It wasn't a bad match. It just wasn't great. I think Siaki still looks like a guy that could be a star. Like, if there was a world that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson made it in football and never stepped in a wrestling ring, I think Sonny Siaki might have had a better career. Because I think those Rock comparisons ultimately ended up hurting him, because there's no way that he could compare to that guy.
No, absolutely.
But he was, he for a guy that was never regarded as this great in-ring technician, I think he showed some flashes in this match and in other matches we've seen him in. But you're right, Steve. The heel-face dynamic was just off in this match, and it continued into the post-match. Like, I didn't feel any sympathy at all for Siaki. And when we talk about who came to help Sonny Siaki, it's like you couldn't have picked a less Sonny Siaki's not sympathetic as a victim. The cavalry is even less sympathetic than the unsympathetic Sonny Siaki.
Yeah, a literal white supremacist in a polo shirt.
Yeah, that's kind of odd. We'll get more about that as the show progresses too. I didn't hate this match. I don't think Slash is a bad wrestler. I think he's okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's obvious that the Sonny Siaki thing. We obviously know what they're trying to go with, and it's when you think about The Rock, who, by the way, at the time was the WWE Undisputed Champion. Remember, he won the match. He won the title, I believe, the previous week at Vengeance 02, in Detroit in that incredible triple threat between him, Kurt Angle, and The Undertaker. Great match. So Rock's your champion in WWF. So it's funny that we're having WWE. So it's funny that we're having this conversation, and The Rock is at the top of the mountain right now in WWE at that moment in 2002. And when you think about The Rock and TNA trying to invent a Rock, I think more about the guy in the next match more than I do Sonny Siaki. But we'll get to the next match in a second. Having said that, the match was good, but I agree with you that Sonny Siaki acting like a heel and then Slash from the church, yeah, the crowd I don't think was quite sure what the hell to do, and it definitely took away from it. You know what I mean? I agree with you on the heat, the lack of heat. That seemed kind of odd, so I agree with you on that. As a wrestler... Oh, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say the finish was kind of weird, too, because Slash took out some sort of black hood while James Mitchell was interfering, and Slash put it on his head, but only for like a split second, then hit a neck breaker, got the win, which I was surprised at, because they were establishing Siaki as a big deal, and Slash, to me, if you're looking at the new church, maybe number 2, maybe number 3, Malice is definitely presented as number 1. So it was a surprise win. And then, of course, the aftermath was Mitchell opening up his box and putting the sheep goat blood in some sort of symbol that didn't really work because blood or fake blood is viscous, so it starts dripping.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be some type of symbol, and I'm just going to pretend it was the artist formerly known as Prince's symbol because that's what it resembled to me.
That might have been the only way they could have saved the new church, is if it was ultimately revealed that their leader was a reincarnated artist formerly known as Prince Iaukea.
There you go. I said it, you spike it.
But now he's, instead of just being a Prince knockoff, he's a Prince knockoff who's also a vampire.
Very, very weird. Very, very weird. Your match time was 7:37. Probably a decent length for that show, for that match. Well, I want to talk more about Sonny Siaki in a little bit because I think he's in the same boat as a guy in our next match. But before we get to the next match, Steve, we have another long and unusual segment.
Man, I'm trying to think. Is this? Okay. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. This was. Yeah. It just all ran together. Like so many of these segments just run together. So first, Goldilocks is with Ricky Steamboat, and Goldilocks bringing her broadcast journalist skills and kind of calling Steamboat out and saying, "Hey, you're brought here. This is chaos here." The exclamation point of this chaos was the fact that she was wearing a shirt with the Dups on it with a no symbol crossing the mouth.
I thought that was awesome.
It was great. And Ricky Steamboat did tell us that, like Moses himself coming down and told us that the NWA law was written down by our forefathers. And, Goldilocks wondered, they didn't listen to Bill Behrens, where are they going to listen to you? Which, is that mean on like the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling, Bill Behrens on it? Ricky Steamboat off? Did he get knocked off somehow? So Steamboat looks a little perturbed, embarrassed, I'd say. We go to the ring. The truth is kind of coming out, not with a formal introduction. Goes to the cage dancer, who we really haven't seen yet, and so he gets in the face of a African American dancer and asks her why she's exposing herself for the almighty dollar and selling herself off, and talking about how all of them, they're really just all modern-day P.T. Barnums, and then I'm getting really uncomfortable.
It was rough, and the language was a little rough, too.
Yeah, I think in what made this work to whatever level it worked is all Ron Killings.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
all the truth. Because
his charisma's off the charts.
Yeah, like I don't know who wrote this, whether Truth had a hand in it or if it was all, a bunch of middle-aged white dudes writing what they think Truth would say. Listen, Truth, this is going to be big, bro. Call her a $2 whore, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. That's why I can't commit 100% to how I feel about this because I don't know who actually had the pin in this segment. But to whatever degree this worked, I think it's because of Truth. He has maybe underrated charisma. Because even now, like he was just on SmackDown this past week, and even though he's added this terrible line to his entrance now, where he's like, "I'm the king of shucking and jiving" or something.
Yes.
Okay.
That effect where it's like, come on, man. But even something like that, he pulls it off because he has a connection. He still has a connection with the crowd. So this segment, like we're gonna get deeper into it once we get the involvement of our Commissioner of the Week. But I think to whatever degree it is good TV, it's almost 100% because of Ron Killings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was. I gotta say, he did kind of dominate he did work it. I feel bad for the girl. I feel bad for the dancer, but he did work it. I have to say that.
And as this got a little, too uncomfortable, Monty Brown came out again, chucked Truth into the crowd, and then they went back and forth for a little bit. Ron Killings, the Truth found like a 2x4 that was rigged and smashed it over Monty Brown's back. So the Truth got the upper hand on that and went in the ring and went towards the ring. Actually, no, he went backstage because this was very odd. Ricky Steamboat came out to the ring, stomped to the ring, got frustrated, called out Ron Killings. So Ron Killings then gets a formal entrance. he was just out like a minute ago, but now he gets a regular formal entrance. Right. And I actually like this part of the segment. Steamboat says, hey, calls him by his real name. Calls him Ron Killings. He's like, I don't know what you're calling yourself these days, but, you say you're the Truth. And I don't know when you're saying them, who are you referring to? Are you saying that them as, authority figures? Are you saying them as in race? And this time they actually come out and say it instead of this big, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right.
And so this is, the build-up of what started with genuinely a Hermes Sadler NASCAR.
Yes.
And like, okay, this makes a little bit more sense. I thought Steamboat was, here they were kind of face to face. He was serious, and Truth comes back and said, hey, I'm a big fan of yours, and I thought you were the best. He brings up the WWF history, which I know I've said this before, but when we're talking about Brian Lawler, I always feel a little uncomfortable when they're bringing up the WWF because there's no way to pay some of that stuff off. And talked about how he had the match with Savage, but he felt that the IC belt was for second-class citizens, and why didn't Steamboat ever get a shot if he was that good at the heavyweight champion? And it was because they were holding him back, and the same thing's happening to him now, and Dragon knows it.
It was interesting. This goes back to Nate's thing about the charisma. It's like, I can't believe that they actually that Ricky Steamboat actually came off as fair here. It was a good twist, Nate.
Yeah, and I think this part certainly works better than the first part of the Truth segment because it goes back to what we were talking about in the last TNA review, Scotty, where we had the initial segment with Truth and Monty Brown, where you can kind of see that there are some points being made that have merit, even if you don't agree overall with what Truth is saying. Like in this, yes, there's an argument to be made. Like, why didn't Ricky Steamboat ever really get a genuine shot to be a top guy? Now, there could be other reasons than what Truth is insinuating, but yeah, anybody could say, you know what, Truth, I don't like what Truth has done so far tonight, but he's got a point. Ricky Steamboat should have been a bigger deal. We talked about it during our Greatest 100, Scott, where, in ring, you could argue Ricky Steamboat is top 5 all time to ever step foot in that company. But he wasn't in my top 5, and I don't think he was in your top 5 because he didn't really, outside of a short window, he was not really somebody that they put the full marketing machine and power of the company behind, and Truth kind of taps into that, and it plays where it's like, and by the time we get to the end, it's like, is Ricky Steamboat being fair, or is Ricky Steamboat being manipulated? And I think that's an interesting question to have coming out of this segment.
It definitely could have gone both ways, but the segment ends out of nowhere with Ron Killings getting an NWA World Heavyweight title shot next week against Ken Shamrock. That came out of the blue. But I liked it, though. I liked it. I think the show needed it. I think the company, the promotion at this point, needed kind of a swerve, Steve, to kind of wake the crowd up a little bit.
And, bringing a little bit of a more serious angle to, what was, again, like just a way to get, their goofy friends on time, get some screen time. And Steamboat sold it well. Like, he did show, like, hey, you could see him going from the anger and the embarrassment that he had in the beginning of the show to, you know what? He's got a point. And that's what they're trying to portray with Ron Killings, is that, hey, he's the truth. He's going to say it like, how it is, and he convinced Steamboat in one segment to give him his shot, which is what he wanted to, and so he started rapping about rednecks.
Yeah, I was saying, and then he ends it kind of effectively going back to the shucking and jiving character, which is like, this is good, but I think in the hands of a better creative team, this entire thing, even going back to Hermie Sadler, could have been so interesting. But because you've got a lot of Russo imprint on this, it's not as good as it could be, but due to truth and in this segment, Steamboat, I think they elevate the material that's on the page.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And so that segment, it's amazing. The segment, which started off kind of smarmy, actually ended up coming out of the blue and ended up being pretty good. So, and I got to say something,
If we didn't have to deal with the puppet stuff and this was the segment we got second, because they very easily could have slotted this right after the AJ, because you could have had Killings come in and attack Monty after Monty got his revenge on Elix, and then that leads to Ricky coming out. I think the flow of this show would have been so much better.
I agree. And I think it gives credence to Steamboat, who a lot of people said his promo work was always his shortcoming throughout his wrestling career. I thought he was pretty good here. I thought he had a good delivery, and I thought it was fine. And now we have a world title match for next week. They're kind of they're building up the show like crazy for next week. We have another big title match that'll be announced later on. Time for our next match, Steve. And like I said, this is where I'm going to start continuing my whole Sonny Siaki rock thing, because the guy in this match has that similar problem.
Well, in this match, we have a hoss fight between Malice and Apollo, and they did note that Apollo is supposed to be next in line. They did announce that last week, that he was the number one contender because he is undefeated. And so now the announcers are questioning, well, how is Apollo going to feel that R-Truth just kind of jumped ahead of him and has the title shot next week? Good point. Then they're actually seeming to put a little more thought into future possible angles. And like you said, Scott, they're kind of getting that show ready. I was going to say pimping, but I didn't think that was appropriate after the last segment.
So sensitive, Steve.
I know. And then the church music is, I found that was terrible. It's like a early 2000s, kind of aggro rock, Limp Bizkit stuff, but with really weak Gregorian chants at the beginning. It's like, where's Jimmy Hart when you need him? We need Jimmy Hart to get in.
Jimmy Hart, Jim Johnston. Somebody named Jim. Oh, so
Jim
bad.
Neighbors.
Yeah, Jim. Howdy-ho. All right. Continue.
And then they go back. One thing that I do like with the commentary over past weeks is that they do concentrate on what's going on in the ring. And here they pulled out some of the old WCW shtick, where you have a match in the ring. You don't have many matches each show. You have like 5 maybe. And they're just talking about the R-Truth. So I guess the silver lining in that is they're getting across how important that angle is. But meanwhile, you have your guy who last week you said is your number one contender, the other man who just stole the title belt the previous week at the in the main event. So clearly he's in the plans to be at the top of the card. And right now they're beating each other outside of the ring. Apollo's getting thrown into the post a couple times, gets busted open either on that or the guardrail, and they're talking about R-Truth. So it makes it seem like, hey, this match isn't that important.
Honestly, this should have been a loser leaves NWA TNA match. Because really, like you mentioned the Rock comparison with Apollo, Scotty. And what I will say is with Malice and Apollo, they're like kind of the same guy. And we don't need both of you.
Yeah.
Like they're both big, physically impressive hosses. Neither are exceptionally proficient in the ring. I think Malice can work a good big man style. Apollo looks like $1 million, but I think he tries too hard to reach for moves that might be a little bit out of his range. Like I think he went for a Hurricane Rana earlier in the match, and it went about as well as you would think. I think they should just have a match with Apollo and Malice and any other big guy that they have. Like they could do it grandfather or retroactively bring in everybody else. Whether you're talking about Abyss or who was Goldust when he was there? Rain.
Yes.
Relic. He was Relic. Rain was the other guy.
I was going to say Seven, but that's the other thing.
Like all the Abyss there, because Abyss was actually a good dude. But all the marginally talented but physically impressive big dudes. Crimson, come on, get in the Battle Royal, Crimson. All these big dudes. Matt Morgan, and we'll just once and for all, one of you guys gets to stay. The rest of you guys got to go find somewhere else to work.
So we were talking earlier about Sonny Siaki. And unfortunately, I feel like Apollo is in the same boat. Two guys who they obviously are trying to pimp, and I am saying pimp there, as the next Dwayne Johnson. Apollo has the physical comparisons, whereas Sonny Siaki has the charisma comparisons. But
if only there a way they could have put them together and fused them. Put their cells together, kind of chromosomes them together, and medicine droppers, and because Sonny Siaki's got a decent amount of charisma, whereas when Apollo was walking down the ramp, he literally had like dead eyes. Like when they show the camera to Apollo walking down the ramp, it literally looked like he was crapping his tights. Like he looked completely vapid in the eyes. I don't know if you guys thought that, but he literally looked like a deer in headlights. And the minute I saw that, I said, he's fucked.
Yeah, very well might have been.
And it's funny because, going back to that looming shadow of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, these guys should have known better, particularly since a lot of these guys came from WCW, and WCW tried to make their own Rock with a guy who is 10 times the athlete and 10 times the performer that either of these guys are in Booker T. Yep. And even Booker T couldn't get that over as becoming the next Rock. And so if Booker couldn't do it, what makes you think these guys are going to do it? Like Apollo looks like $1 million, but if you're doing the SAT comparison thing, it's like Apollo is to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Harold Miner is to Michael Jordan.
Harold Miner!
Like there's some surface things that connect them, but ultimately one is in a much different weight class than the other.
I love trashing USC alums. Keep it up, Nate.
And I thought you were going for Hoovy juice.
I got a soft spot for Hoovy too. They made that man ride a lawnmower. That was his gimmick. So I got a soft spot for Hoovy.
Not a John Deere, a Juan Deere. Maybe if Apollo came down to the ring on a Juan Deere, the charisma level would have gone up a little bit.
I don't think TNA had that in the budget.
No, he would have brought one of those push mowers, and not even one with a motor, one of those like blade turner ones.
You want me to get what, Jeff? We don't have that in the budget. He would come out with a push mower, or a weed whacker, leaf blower. That's about as much as they can afford.
We can't afford extension cord. It would have gone too long. Apollo gets the win with a cheap roll up, I think. And
it was a super kick.
It was a super kick, and then Malice goes after the ref for the loss. I would think at this point Malice is pretty much cooked. I mean, he had that little spurt in the beginning, the first few episodes, as pseudo number one contender with Shamrock, but he's lost to Shamrock, and now loses to Apollo here. I think it's time to move on.
Once they swept the theft of the belt under the rug, the writing was on the wall because they didn't even pay that off. They just said, "Oh, he just returned the belt back." So they obviously, sometime during the week they were like, we really can't go but so far with Malice. Apollo's not that much better, so maybe we'll try our luck with Truth."
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, Malice just has an awful look. Like, WCW in its dying days didn't do much right, but hiding his body and hiding all those tattoos, like, it just, the face didn't match the body, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Good way to put it.
And so they did a good job of hiding it, and they actually did a little bit of that here while he was wearing his vest to the ring and wore it in the beginning of the match. But there's just not... He's not an attractive man. You got other big guys on the roster. Like, there's just nothing to him. Really.
Steve, when you say that with such divinity, he's not a very attractive man. When you can't even get Steve Willie to think you're good looking, man, you're fucked.
Well, the thing is, there's a role for everybody, and I think he works well as muscle. Like when he was with Alex Wright, that worked.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But if he's supposed to be the main guy, I think he's a bit over his head, and they certainly shouldn't have put him anywhere near the title. Like, I think that was a mistake.
I think that was a mistake too. There was a lot of better guys in Battle Royal and back in episode 1 that they could have given the title shot to. That one might have been that might have been a bad move. But you know what? I feel like they're going in the right direction, and we do have our title shot match next week between Ken Shamrock and The Truth. I didn't get a length for that match. It was probably about 7 minutes. Probably about
6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's about the same length as the Slash and Siaki match.
Yes, and much like that match too, we got the obligatory Don Harris run-in.
Yes.
And he got painted with some sheepgoat blood in the Prince symbol.
Oh my God, so bad. All right. This is just so bad.
All right, I'll go through this really quick. I think I can do it pretty quick.
We need to catch up on time here. We don't need to go further.
So Taylor Vaughn comes out, and if you remember Taylor Vaughn, you're a genius and you have an incredible memory. But she was
you probably remembered her incredible memories.
Yes, indeed.
That's what she's known for. That's what she has.
Oh, that was a softball right there that he just served up, and they just hit the gap for a double.
So she's in the ring with Don West. We really don't know why she's in the ring with Don West. And then Bruce from the Rainbow Express, a.k.a. the former Kiwi, comes to the ring, calls Taylor Vaughn some choice words for no apparent reason. Basically says he wants a shot at the Miss TNA crown because if you're gay, that means you want to be a woman. I don't quite understand that.
Well, this is what I was talking about with Truth, Steve, because they actually Bruce makes an allusion to Truth here, where he's tired of being a second-class citizen too. He wants to, I guess, stand up for gay rights, but the material is bad. I don't know if it's any worse than what Truth had to do, but Truth's a much better performer.
Right. And Truth at least made sense in the context of where we're going, where it's like, hey, I want to fight for gay rights. Let me dress up as a queen. So they had a quick match. Taylor Vaughn getting a couple moves. Bruce gave some sort of facebuster type move. Ed Ferrara made misogynistic comment, and then we're done. Bruce is a queen. It's awful. It's as awful as it sounds.
The only good thing about this match, Scotty, was actually Taylor wasn't as bad as I thought she was going to be.
No, and what's funny is there's a little history between these two because she was in WCW, and she was Kwee-Wee's wife, I think. Wasn't she Papaya?
Wow.
No, or was that in the Indies? Hold on.
That might have been in the Indies. I'm trying to remember because I remember Kwee-Wee had a red hot feud with the artist formerly known as Prince Iakea. It was like the Von Erichs and the Freebirds all over again. Paisley was in the middle of that. Booker T's wife now, Charmel. And then I remember Taylor was BB for like a hot millisecond in the WWF.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry Lawler got to scream about her puppies every week. The Papaya thing sounds familiar, but I think that might have been an indie thing.
Nope, here we go. I found it. Of course, as we all know, she was Barbara Bush in WWF, BB. Kathy Dingman is her real name. She turned up as Papaya in WCW with red hair as the on-screen wife and valet of Kwee-Wee.
Huh.
She appeared only twice before disappearing.
Okay, and it was probably on Thunder.
Most likely. Or maybe worldwide.
I don't just going through Nitros, I haven't seen her yet. So it was probably a Thunder exclusive because, you got to keep the good stuff for the Thursday show.
I don't think those two words have ever been put together, Nate. Thunder exclusive.
It's a Thunder exclusive. Let's give Tanae and the Brain something to talk about this week.
So, obviously, the TNA bookers thought there was some chemistry between these two. I'm trying to pull it off. And in any event, now Bruce / Kwee-Wee is Miss TNA. Be proud. Okay.
I mean, that's the whole point of this segment. He was proud.
Yeah.
So then we go back to... I'm just moving on. We
Please do.
To Goldilocks again, who I believe is in her third outfit of the evening. And she is with Loki, who is doing some pull-ups, and he's going against Jerry Lynn. And that was it. He says he's going to do his time in the ring. So we have Loki versus Jerry Lynn. AJ is with them, and Jerry Lynn not only brought AJ, but he brought AJ's old country music ditty, which is very weird to see, knowing Jerry Lynn's fascination with really hardcore death metal.
Right.
And we have AJ is on commentary. This is where I noticed there were far less people in the crowd at this point. There were entire rows that were
empty,
open towards the top, which is sad that they, missed the Taylor Vaughn Bruce match.
Maybe that's when
maybe they did, and
maybe they did. Yeah.
Maybe they did, and they couldn't stay for Loki and Jerry Lynn. It was going to be too much for them.
Damn, they missed out. Let me tell you.
Yeah, they had a really interesting match, Jerry Lynn and Loki. Not something we have seen in a X Division match that I can recall, and that they started off for quite a few minutes on the ground.
Yep.
Working back and forth, and wrestling holds, and kind of catch can reverses. As AJ is a far worse actor, I would say, at this point in his career than Jerry Lynn was.
Right.
It was so obvious that he was, being a little arrogant. Oh yeah, he's just such a great teacher. And Nate, you actually brought up something I was thinking before. What I was thinking during this match, you talked about guys like Jerry Lynn and AJ and where they would kind of fit in amongst other wrestlers at this time period, Jerry Lynn, in my opinion, is the best wrestler at this time period in TNA. He really stands out these 7 episodes, even more so than AJ, who's still a little green. If you're ranking, say, wrestlers of this time, not based on how big of a star they are, I was going to ask, you this too, Scott, where do you think he ranks? Because I know, Scott, you have a huge encyclopedic knowledge of, this time period. Mm-hmm. 2002, I'm a little bit light on, not that Jerry Lynn is going to go in and fight The Rock, but in terms of all-around wrestling and the character work that he's been doing, I've been incredibly impressed.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I think he'd be up there. I think, I think if you were going to nail it down, Scotty and Steve, to maybe one factor that held Jerry Lynn back, that that was maybe his main problem, if you want to frame it as a problem, is his age. And I think TNA at this point is doing a good job of using that to their advantage. I think ECW used it to their advantage, this veteran guy. But the reason I think we never really saw an inserted Jerry Lynn run up north is because, at this point, Jerry Lynn is not the hot new thing. He's the, to paraphrase the great cinema classic Men in Black, he's not new hotness. He's old and busted.
That's unfortunate, too, because, he's one of the guys that's kind of being the foundation for this new promotion. So it's good that he's there, but I think you're right, Steve, or Nate, that he, he's a little grizzled. Which may not be what they're going for, but still, I think the stability. I think he had some stability to the X division right now, and this match with Loki really showed it. It was exceptional. I wasn't crazy about the end. I thought the end kind of sucked, but I understood the story. Steve, why don't you let everybody know what the end was? What happened at the end?
Yeah, the end is after a ton of back and forth, or Loki regained the edge with a bunch of his strikes and really started to work over the submission holds, and the announcer is wondering how Jerry can come back. A lot of reversals, a lot of near falls, very much like a match you would see nowadays where you want to bite on the near falls. Loki finally takes the end control, gets out of the cradle pile driver and hits him with a capo kick. Calls for the key crusher, and AJ's like, hey, I'm going to go save him. Jerry Lynn goes to throw Loki in the ropes. Loki reverses it. We've seen this a million times before. AJ kicks Jerry Lynn in the head, it sure looked to be an accident. And then Loki finishes him off. The key crusher gets the 3, and then they're like, AJ did that on purpose. And I was like, wait, what? Like, it just it looked like it was miscommunication that you see a million times in every wrestling promotion ever. And then then AJ gives a smirk and gets in Jerry Lynn's face. Loki realizes what happens, attacks AJ, and there we go. And so a really good match. I just. We mentioned in the first match with AJ that they looked like they were, some spots that were blown, and, being a young, up-and-coming talent, you're going to do that from time to time, but this was all really mistimed. It shouldn't have been looking like an accident that was on a reversal, that he looked like he was going for low-key. If you're going to do it, just pop him and cost him. Make it obvious, because it took a couple minutes to figure out what was going on.
Right. No, that's obviously true there. And it kind of took away. Longest match of the night, by the way, 14-10. Which match do you think was better on this night, Nate? This one or the opener?
I'd give a slight edge to the opener just because I think it had a better finish. That finishing sequence with Elix going for the play of the day, AJ reversing it, going for the Styles Clash, Elix reversing that, and then ending with a spiral tap. I thought it was a lot cleaner than what we got here. And like Steve said, it was too ambiguous for the turn, especially when we look at these two going back and forth. I think they've turned and made up at least 4 out of these 7 weeks we've watched this show. And so to have such discohesion, I'm just going to make that up. That's a new word. I'll be Jonathan Coachman. That's the word of the hour, discohesion. Particularly considering what we've got coming up next. I just thought this was a really strong match. I love low-key. And eventually this leads to one of the best matches in TNA's early days with a 3-way with low-key, Jerry Lynn, and AJ Styles. But the ending just, it kind of left a sour taste on what was a really good match.
It did. I agree with that. And from this, we get an announcement. Well, I think we'll save the announcement for before the main event, but we have our last interview segment of the night. This one I think almost went as well as the Bruce Taylor Vaughn one. I don't even know why they have this guy in the company. I really don't. I think this is one of those like roster overkills, Steve. But we have our second edition of
Jive Talking. There's some real discohesion going on here.
Discohesion.
This was worse than Bruce and Taylor Vaughn because at least that was quick. This seemed to take forever.
It did.
Disco still got his terrible haircut, the awful looking furniture that's mixed matched, and then he claims that his next guest is gonna expose herself live on TNA, and it's Goldilocks who's out for the fourth time, wearing her back to her second outfit of the night. She had her third one, but then she changed back
to
into her Dubs shirt.
Yes.
Man, I don't want to talk about this.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's really bad. Basically, Disco Inferno is getting her to talk about her music. The crowd doesn't care. Goldilocks realizes they're booing her and tries to make the best of it, but she's just not supposed. She shouldn't be doing this.
No, she shouldn't.
Disco Inferno implies many times that she's a dumb bitch, and Goldilocks has enough, slaps him, and out comes a very tall woman. Apparently, it's Paulina from season 1 of Tough Enough.
That was the thing. That was the thing that got me, Steve. I got to stop you there.
Yeah.
Outside of the two matches, AJ and Elix and Jerry Lynn and Low Key, Mike Tenay having to sell the shock that Paulina Thomas from Tough Enough season 1 has come out on the set. That might have been my favorite moment of the night. Don, do you know who that is? That's Paulina Thomas from Tough Enough season 1.
And there's like two people in the crowd chanting Paulina. It's like, and I'm sitting there like, man, I remember I watched like Tough Enough season 1 twice, and I really enjoyed it. I have no idea who Paulina Thomas from Tough Enough 1 is.
Me neither.
Like, I vaguely remembered it just because I remember she's the tall chick that had a knee injury.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't know anything about this woman's personality. I didn't know that she was a decent wrestler, and judging by the sleeper hold, she was not. Which is probably why she didn't win. Tough Enough won.
Yeah. So that was about it, and she left with Disco Inferno. I think they call him Disco. I don't even know. And then one of my favorite parts of the show right here is when they went back to the table and Don West is there and they're talking about next week's show, and they are really building it up. They're talking about, Truth getting his title shot against Shamrock, and I think this is when they announced the three-way match. And as they're talking about it, Don West just stands up, and he just gets so excited, and it's like he's gone into his shill mode from Home Shopping Network or Shop at Home or whatever, and he's wearing this really bright red shirt, and he's so excited. He's so excited that his face is turning as red as his shirt, and that it's going to be the most unbelievable show of all time. And he got me. He was selling me on it. I thought he did. It was super cheesy. And hey, if you got a hype man on commentary, let him do hype. And he did a pretty good job, as cheesy as it was.
There was just one problem.
Yeah?
He said Ricky the Steamboat Dragon.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And we gotta thank Ricky the Steamboat Dragon.
Yeah, I mean his legal name is Rick Dragon. So no question, Don West.
That was too much discomation or discolition or whatever. Steve, you have a little
to be fair to Don West though, like we're all still kind of coming off of that high of seeing Paulina Thomas from season 1 of Tough Enough.
That's some high, let me tell you.
I mean, she is like 6'3" or 6'4".
Yeah, and she had a tramp stamp, and she was wearing a thong.
That didn't fit, yeah.
It didn't fit. Okay. Oh my God, guys, she has a tramp stamp!
You know who that is?
You know who that is? The one with
Why
the tramp
was Disco Inferno brought into the HR office for harassing a coworker?
I know, right?
Well, we see the HR office in our next match, which is the main event of our evening.
Yes.
Razor Ramon versus Jeff Jarrett in, I believe, a stretcher match.
It's not a stretcher match.
Yeah, because the stretcher match you have to like pull your guy back, but there is the Army Navy surplus store stretcher was involved.
Yes.
They thought. This is where Scott Hall has clearly got some drug problems because he's trying to recreate the ladder match with HBK, using the Army Navy surplus store stretcher / hammock, because they were using it with ladder spots.
Yes, I agree.
And at this point, like, I was probably watching this, I believe, last night, and it wasn't that late. It was about 10 o'clock our time, and I just stopped watching. I just kind of zoned out.
Yep.
And like realized, like, hey, I'm taking notes. This is the main event. Why am I not paying attention? And I realized that they just kind of shut me off with these couple of last segments.
Yeah.
And maybe now that I'm looking back at it, through fresh eyes, maybe I was just entranced by the shock of seeing Paulina from Tough Enough 1.
I think so. Considering you called him Razor Ramon instead of Scott Hall, which makes me think, were you actually watching WrestleMania 11?
I could have been. And let's be honest, they're basically having him be Razor Ramon.
Yeah, for the most part.
And he's got the exact same theme song with just a couple different notes thrown in there.
Yep.
So yeah, they did fight around the arena, went backstage. It was kind of a typical brawl, and there you see what could have been HR or the world's saddest gorilla position.
Yes.
With just a cheap folding table and the back of Vince Russo and some other guy, who knows.
Oh, it was so bad.
It just like backstage was just like a hallway, and a room where Jerry Lynn's taking his bag out.
Yeah, some dividers. Oh, it was so bad. Well, it's the fairgrounds. It's probably only like 200 square feet, so it's probably not much room to do anything other than wrestle in the main building. And then the match kind of ends pseudo-abruptly. Jeff Jarrett gets the win. And then we pretty much go off the air. We have, like, no time for anything else. So they haven't figured out, like, how to get off the air smoothly yet.
No.
So
no, they run on that every week.
Yeah.
There was so much stuff going on.
Yeah, they're not good at all when it comes to time management. Nope. And editing, maybe more so than time management. Like, there are certain things that we could have left off of this show. Namely Puppet, or the jive talking segment. Granted, Paulina. If Paulina Thomas is in the building, you book Paulina Thomas. But there's so much stuff that we see week to week on the show where it feels like either Jarrett or Russo or whoever is trying to get so many of their buddies on the card that it just overflows things, and we never really get, a good kind of rhythm to the show. Like, we've got some really good things on this episode and a lot of stuff that could have been left on the cutting room floor.
Yep. They're getting there week by week, though. They're getting there.
Yeah, they're getting better.
Little by little, they do have to just cut back on some of these interview, like, talking skits, because midgets and handguns probably is not good. Not good. They got to work on that. However, they did a good job in ring. We get two good X Division matches. Moderately decent match between Sonny Siaki and Slash. Wish we had a Apollo versus Malice. Everybody leaves town. That would be nice. And just consistent misogynist, moderately racist nonsense. Bouncing in and out. But I will say that I said this at the beginning, guys, I really do think the announcing is slowly starting to get there. Slowly. Nate. Very slowly. But it's getting there. Unless Ed Ferrara is way too overboard. Maybe not as bad as like 4 or 5 episodes ago when he was, grabbing Francine's tits. That was probably a bit much. I think he settled down a little bit. I don't know. What do you think, guys? Nate, you first. Do you think the announcing's gotten a little bit better in these through these first 7?
Yeah, but I think that has more to do with material becoming a bit more toned down. It's still not all the way toned down, but it's certainly less than it was in the beginning. I think this commentary team, though, really doesn't hit its stride until they get rid of Ferrara. Because I think West and Tenay are a perfect balance of the serious, clinical professor, and then this guy who is basically a used car salesman, and they work well off of each other.
Right.
And Ferrara is kind of like the odd man out.
Right. What do you think, Steve?
Man, I have to admit that he's getting less annoying. begrudgingly have to admit that.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't know. This is all new to me, these shows. I don't know how long he's going to last. I hope it's not much longer. They basically have 2 hype men already, and they don't need 2 hype men. So it's just like he only gets over the angles that he wants to get over. And besides that, it's just, coming across as annoying. Anytime he tries to ad-lib something, it can come across horrifically racist or sexist. The one comment that I referred to in the first match was basically insinuating that Elix Skipper and R-Truth might be related. Which was just, it was just disgusting. And if this is how someone thinks on the fly, imagine what they're like in real life.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm trying to get into that match, and then something like that happens, and it's just, you shake your head and get out of it for a minute or so. And is that what you want out of your announcers? Do you want them to be a distraction? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Is he better than he was in the first few episodes? Well, yeah, because they're keeping him out of segments.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So there you go. There is NWA TNA pay-per-view number 7, and in a month, 2 episodes from now, we will go to number 8. We'll get into the month of August. We have 2 title matches to look forward to in a month. Gentlemen, there is episode 107 in the books. Brother Nate, thanks for being able to return and join us on the B block. You'll be with us in full in 2 weeks, hopefully, as will you, Steve. When we join you again in 2 weeks for episode 108, we will be recapping SummerSlam, would have happened the previous Sunday, and of course NXT TakeOver, and we'll see what finally happened with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, and what kind of mishmash, flim-flam nonsense we get at the end of that show. And does Ronda beat Alexa Bliss in 20 seconds, which she really should do. I'll go on a whole thing about Ronda in 2 weeks, because I got a whole thing about her and I love Ronda. It's actually very pro Ronda, but it's driven me insane trying to watch her on TV. It's frustrating. Anyway, and then, Brother Steve, you are in possession of our content for the next New Japan Classic match pick.
Indeed I am. You
do. A couple of Liger matches, I believe you chose. And you're going to put them maybe in a week or so, throw them up on our Facebook page, and let everyone vote on which match, which Liger match you'd like us to cover. Do you have them in, Steve? What were they again?
There is one that is, the 1992 match was between El Samurai and Jushin Thunder Liger, and it was at the April 30th, 1992 Sumo Hall show, and there was a J-Cup match I wanted to put in there too, and come and check out our Facebook page, PTBN's main event. I will put up there. I know one of them I want to look at was the Super J-Cup match between Great Sasuke and Jushin Thunder Liger as well. So put up a couple of Liger matches, and you guys can choose what you want to see.
I'm looking forward to either match. It'll be very good. So, for Brother Steve and Brother Nate and the Sheriff Pete, Nate's brother from another mother, I am Brother Scott. Been in the main event. Don't pull a gun on us. We promise everything will be fine. Enjoy SummerSlam. We'll talk about it and much more in 2 weeks.
Steve, what the hell? That's Jake Sokoloff from Tough Enough 2. What's he doing here?
I don't know. We better pull out a gun out of my pants.